We have to ask the question, is Jeremy at the quartering simping at this moment in time? Is he being a hypocrite? And does this court case have any, let's just say, any SJW talking points that somebody who preaches against social justice warriors is now taking advantage of? Well, this right here does not look to be such a, how do I say, good look. Now, guys, before we talk about this, and of course this video is going to be relatively long, but don't worry, me sitting in front of the camera is not going to be that long. It'll be very, very brief with this little background here and exactly explanation of how this video is going to go. So let me go ahead and get this out of the way. This video right here that I released earlier today was an initial reaction to what was going on, and I explained to you guys in that video, which by the way will still come out today at 3. This video will come out roughly 6. That the biggest issue that I had with this entire Sydney Watson, Elijah Schaffer Blaze case was the fact that Sydney was citing the fact that she's an atheist, and of course they try to get her to be a bit of a trad conservative. I thought that was kind of like maybe it's possible that that little ordeal may be dead on arrival going in this case, because, and even though I'm not a lawyer or anything, it doesn't take much to realize that there's not a whole lot you can say when you say that, look, they tried to get me to change my beliefs when you already did not have a belief structure. I kind of think, okay, I thought it was a little bit, how do I say, I thought maybe that might be a little bit of a non-factor, and I also advised everything else in the case that she was mentioning about inappropriate misconduct or inappropriate conduct on set, things like that there, things like the stuff that you would normally get accused of in a Me Too case. I said that that would be mostly speculation. However, upon further review, not just talking or actually looking into the information last night after I made that video, I found out that, hey, there's a lot of hearsay here and a lot of things that, quite frankly, are not proven, not a lot of strong evidence. And it seems to me that the girl could be using, and like I said, I'm saying this as in could be, using certain types of talking points that, quite frankly, we don't expect those of a certain type to actually use. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that many people believe that she is using SJW talking points, and she looks like a bit of a hypocrite. Now, before I go any further, I promise you this section of the video will not last long. We'll get these 3 videos here in a second. I want to go ahead and say this right here. As I said in the earlier video, I am not a super fan of Sydney Watson. I am not a super fan of Jeremy Thequartering, and I am not a super fan of Elijah Schaffer. As a matter of fact, I find Elijah Schaffer and Jeremy to be completely cringe. Jeremy from time to time, like for example in the case of what happened with Tim Pool, or like what happened in the case of, which is funny we're mentioning Tim Pool because Jeremy may very, very well be pulling a Tim Pool here. In the case of what happened with Black Rifle Coffee, which I did a couple of videos on, I thought that he was very good on that. However, at the end of the day, he's still somewhat cringe because he likes to do 200 videos on one particular person. All you got to do is look at Amber Heard, and all you got to do is take a look at Brie Larson. That's all you got to friggin' do. Sydney, I think, is very funny. I think she's smart, but at the same time, though, if she's using these SJW talking points, then it may be possible that maybe she was never exactly what she said she was, and it could just be a great big giant grift. We don't know that. I'll be talking about that more on the flip side of this video, which, by the way, will come after all 3 of these videos here. Now that you guys have an idea of what the background is, there's a lawsuit going on here. Let's go ahead and take a look at these videos, and I'll give you guys my thoughts afterwards. But before we go any further there, I want to go and let you guys know right now. I looked at the Jeremy Thequartering video. I looked at it last night. I then looked at it again this morning right after I woke up. That video will be coming up first. I looked at the Rekieta video, the entire live stream last night. That live stream will be in the description box. There's only about 9 minutes total from that there. However, a large portion of that video is very hard to explain. So I'm going to leave the full video in the description box. That right there will be second. And then, of course, there's another video from another content creator commenting on what was going on with Jeremy Thequartering. And there's also something else, too. Jeremy Thequartering, you'll see this in the Rekieta section, when he's bringing up the whole fact that a lot of the legalese, he doesn't exactly agree with what they're saying. Just know that he was in their comment section earlier that night, and, of course, he was super chatting them, Rekieta, especially because they released their content 2 days before he did. I want to go ahead and get that out of the way now. You will see that there, and you'll probably notice a shift in tone in this video towards the end. A lot of this is because more and more stuff, when you actually look at it, you find out that, guess what? There's a lot of things that are missing here, and it kind of builds up to what you were seeing, which for the end of the day may just be a good old-fashioned lawsuit that is based more on hearsay than actual evidence. Let's go ahead and get to it.
It's a good idea either. I think that it's a policy.
Stop.
That's sexual harassment.
No, you stop. Is it though? Notice the way Katie licked her lips when she was listening? Her subtle, slightly trampy body language? And don't even get me started on that top. Wait a minute, Regina. Aren't you sort of giving this guy a free pass? You shut your mouth.
What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from Thequartering, and I guess I have to address the Sydney Watson lawsuit. I felt like I addressed it extraordinarily thoroughly on several live streams and on a very long Twitter post. But people are still invading live streams and comment sections, demanding I say more, apparently.
Well, Jeremy, it's very possible that you could be experiencing the same thing with Tim Pool. You see, guys, I said over and over again that the best thing Tim Pool could have done was addressed it and then told his audience that he was not going to touch it until more facts came out or until Shane Cashman's thing came out. But, of course, Tim decided to get upset and go crazy at his subscribers. Now, if you watch this, you may get the impression that Jeremy is doing the exact same thing that Tim was doing, albeit in a much, much different way. A lot of this, I think, has got to do with personality. Now, let's watch a little bit more of this because, as I may have mentioned, a lot of people are pointing back to the video that she made as part of the reason why I put the video that came from Justin is Lost in the previous video that I did, which looking at now probably should have been a little bit more expansive. That video, by the way, was designed to be a primer video for me to come back to this at a later date because I wanted to look at the lawsuit when the entire thing was officially filed and everything had gone through. But obviously, we've talked about Nick Rekieta at the very beginning of this video. We talked about legal mindset at the very beginning of this video and why it is that they think she's using social justice warrior language and why it is that it does not surprise me, especially considering the fact that a lot of lawyers are left-leaning anyways. But at the same time, though, is Sydney doing this and is Jeremy running cover for
her? Saying I'm a hypocrite for not making 200 videos about it, apparently. I have a suspicion that these are fans of perhaps those that are put in a negative light by this lawsuit. But also, you know what? As a man, I try to be a man of integrity. I felt like doing the Twitter post was enough. Apparently, there is at least a small section of people that demand more. I have my suspicions on why they're demanding I talk about it. I think they believe that I will not be supportive of Sydney Watson, but unfortunately for them, I will be reiterating right now exactly what I said on Twitter. Is that
Okay, now here's something else too you got to understand. He has this podcast he does with her on Thursday nights, okay? So you probably would automatically think that he's probably going to cover her anyways for that very reason because of the fact that they have a podcast and that they're making money together. But I think Sydney just did a video here recently basically explaining why she's not been on as much and why she in the future does not plan on being on YouTube as much. Now, guys, I also broke down the previous video why it was that I thought this lawsuit was dead on arrival because she keeps on saying that, well, what was it? The Blaze calls me to they wanted me to change my belief structure, or they were trying to force me to change my belief structure. The problem is this here. See, he's an atheist. Okay, if you're an atheist, you already don't have a belief structure, so therefore you cannot actually have the belief structure to actually change at that moment in time. Okay, I'm just throwing that out there. That was my biggest issue. However, upon further review, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people are looking at the lawsuit and they're looking at the language of the lawsuit and they're saying, okay, this right here looks more like some social justice warrior Me Too stuff. And people are wondering if Jeremy is, by the way I mentioned at the very beginning, is he actually covering for her? Well, my response to that is that if you don't think Jeremy won't recover for one of his employees, kind of like what happened with Tim Pool, then you would be probably mistaken. Of course, he's going to cover for her. However, the question is that at some point in time, will this cover eventually run out and will he have to cut bait with her?
100% back Sydney Watson. And in her lawsuit, I feel like I understand why people are looking at this and thinking, a lot of it is in the wording of the lawsuit, which is all really people have to see. And so I understand why people are reacting the way that they are. But also, I'm trying not to get drug into court either. I'd rather just, handle my business and produce my 7 videos a day. And so I haven't really said much about it because, the fact of the matter is I do know more than what a lot of people do. I know a lot about it because I work with Sydney Watson, and Sydney Watson is my friend. I know Elijah Schaefer. I've hung out with Elijah Schaefer. I don't have anything personally against the man. If people are looking for, me to disavow him, certainly he's had some bad behavior. He was terminated from the Blaze for putting his hands on a woman who didn't.
Okay, this right here already looks bad because you're saying that you know him. You're basically saying that you pretty much in a lot of ways kind of said you didn't want to smear him, but then you turn right back around and you brought up his past. Now, Schaefer is claiming at this moment in time that nothing that Sydney Watson is saying is true. That's one of the reasons why I told you guys in the first video, which, by the way, I already know some people already didn't like, which you might want to wait and see exactly how much comes out and how much is actually proven to be true. Jeremy defending her at this moment in time, especially knowing some things that are probably in the court case, does not surprise me. Him keeping his mouth shut does not surprise me. However, what would be better if what he should probably do is just not say a damn word. Try to address it like Tim Pool did, say, look, I work with Sydney, but don't proceed to then turn right back around and bring up Elijah Schaefer's past. Okay, if you do that right there, it automatically makes you look like you're already biased towards Sydney in a much, much different way than you already are. I want to say it was Radix Verum. She brought up a video earlier where apparently Jeremy at one time used to comment on Sydney's videos saying stuff like, hey, and things like that, which doesn't really surprise me given Jeremy's personality, but at the same time, this really just isn't a good look.
And so apparently it's extraordinarily difficult for people to understand, and maybe he wasn't very, very nice guy, but I didn't have any bad interactions with him. And I figured I'll address it. And,
Okay, I didn't have any bad interactions with him, but I'm also going to bring up the fact that he put his hands on a girl, etc. And about something else, too. In that first video I didn't just show you guys the clip of Sydney Watson and Jack Murphy. I showed you a little bit more of the interaction between the entire group. And you kind of noticed that Schaefer's kind of got that jokey demeanor anyways, and I didn't really see anything there. Now, granted, it's only one clip. But I've watched other episodes and not seen anything other than the actual jokey demeanor. I mean, the real reason, and I said this in the previous video, that the reason why Sydney is doing this, why she's suing the Blaze, is because the Blaze has got a lot more money than Elijah Schaefer. Look, I may have also mentioned it in that video too, but they removed their content and replaced it with Alex Stein. So a lot of people automatically think that maybe the Blaze is the guilty party. I think the Blaze is just simply going on as business as usual. But still at the same time, though, Jeremy, if you're trying to cover for her, maybe what the best thing you could do is just not say anything. Just say, we work together, that's it. I'm not going to divulge any details of the case. I'm not going to attack Elijah. I'm not going to attack Sydney. I work with Sydney. But this right here makes it look like you're simping for Sydney.
To the people in my audience that are saying, Jeremy, we don't need you to address it, we totally understand. I appreciate that, and I'll use this opportunity to ask you to tune in to Sydney and my show, Community Notes. We normally do it Thursday night.
Okay, that right there already looks worse too. Okay, tune into my show. Okay, that right there kind of is what people are talking about when they say that they think you're cringe, bro. Because now you're starting to sound a little bit like Tim. Tim Pool would answer back to this stuff, and then he would tell you to turn right back around and join his membership. Now, this isn't any different than somebody asking you to subscribe to the channel. We'll take myself, for example. I don't mean to harp on myself, but as I've said before, I don't have a Patreon. I don't have a subscribe store. I don't ask you guys to donate to this channel, okay? I've got an income source coming in from somewhere else. I do this for the most part for fun. I obviously would like to make money off of it, but I'm not interested in having you guys donate to a subscribe store or join a membership at this point in time, especially telling you guys to tune into my show after I've already basically sent for this individual. I mean, it's just not a very good look.
But tonight we're going to go live tonight. Because we have some travel stuff. So I hope I'll see you there. I'll leave a link in the description. So if nothing else, hopefully the people that are really angry about this, it backfires and we get a bunch of new viewers on Community Notes. We've been doing this show for, I think, almost a year now. And I think it's really growing well. And I think you'll like it. And we also have, my editors doing clips so people can consume the clips. quicker and things of that nature. And so I'd love to see you there tonight. So what's going on with Sydney Watson? Well, she has a lawsuit against the Blaze. And it is over some bad behavior that happened there. What people are focusing on, because that's all they have.
That's something else too, man. Do we even know that there is any bad behavior over there? I mean, like I said, the best thing you could have done was just address this right off the bat and just said, look, this is obviously something going on between these two entities, and I'm just going to leave it at that. We work with one another. I can't divulge any pieces of the case. Just know that we work together. I'm not going to fire her over this. I want to see more facts. I mean, you could have done that there if you want to be a little bit more objective. Also, something else too. Look at this title. Sydney Watson gets woke and sues the Blaze and Thequartering next. Will she go broke? Yeah, that right there, if that right there isn't a grift, or if that right there is not some attempt at trying to hoodwink your audience, I really and truly don't know what the hell is.
Focus on are the black and white text that's in the lawsuit. And from what I understand, what I'm gathering is some law tubers said that they don't like the lawsuit, or that they don't think it's a good lawsuit. Hey, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
Then you might want to keep your mouth shut then, because Nick Ricada and Legal Mindset, and they're not the only ones who've talked about this. I want to say Robert Barnes has spoken about this. I'm waiting for more to come out. A lot of these guys, by the way, are former attorneys. Some of them are still practicing. They go on YouTube. And I don't know if they do it so much to give legal advice, but mostly for commentary. But if they're actually attorneys, then they might would know a little bit more. Like I said before, Jeremy, the best thing you could have done from this entire thing is you could have just said, look, dude, Sydney's got a lawsuit. She works with me. I know these people. I know all these people for the most part. I'm not going to comment on this. But it just looks like you're now white knighting for somebody who may be, in fact, pulling a Me Too social justice warrior move. Of course, as I've said before, it's mostly speculation at this moment in time. But it's the thing. You look like you're white knighting for somebody who probably may not need to be white knighted for, or maybe should not be white knighted for. As I've said before, as I said at the very beginning, I'm not really a fan of Elijah Schaffer. I never really have been. Even though I agree with him more times than I do with Sydney, he's just kind of cringe himself. But the thing is this right here. If Sydney Watson is, in fact, hoodwinking us all and pulling an SJW Me Too movement, then she looks like a bit of a hypocrite, and you look bad for defending her. Like I said, best thing you could have done was said, look, I am going to stay out of this. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts. I'm going to let the entire thing play out. This is something that she's got going on right now. If you'd have done that there and been a little bit less biased and not automatically jumped to her side from the start, people wouldn't be thinking that you're white knighting, bro.
I'm seeing that. I don't know about that stuff. Obviously, also, there's some language in the lawsuit that, I understand people who are skeptical when it's like, oh, woman complains about being mistreated at work. Oh, sure, again. That kind of thing.
Yes, kind of what's going on here, dude.
I admit that there certainly are many spurious lawsuits like this that should be bounced out of court. I do not believe that Sydney's case is one of those. What people are seeming to forget in their rush to criticize her, call her a feminist and things like that, SJW, is this woman has a body of work that has dozens of videos defending men.
Okay, that doesn't mean a whole lot, and let me explain the reasons why. Okay, I recall about a year ago, and I know that I'm kind of going on a bit of a tangent here, but I recall about a year ago that Lauren Southern had a little debate with a guy. I didn't watch all of it. I'll go ahead and admit I didn't watch all of it. However, I do remember the nature of that debate. She was upset that somebody was making content about her. It was a smaller YouTube channel. The guy only had like 2,000 or 3,000 subscribers. Very, very young in his YouTube venture. Definitely a much, much bigger channel than mine, which is still very, very small. This individual got into it with her trying to defend the guy who was making the videos because Lauren was taking legal action against said individual. She was taking legal action against that guy. Well, Lauren Southern's got like close to 1 million damn subscribers. Why in the world would you get upset about something as small as that? You see, even these ladies now who claim to be so conservative and so anti-feminist, in a lot of ways they're kind of showing you that deep down inside, they just may be the feminist types. Lauren, by the way, would eventually take that live stream down. I tried to go back and rewatch it, and I even tried to do a video on it because in about 20 or 30 minutes time, the guy pointed out a lot of hypocrisy on her end, and of course, that video didn't go any further. As a matter of fact, I mean, it was the worst I'd ever seen her look. She actually looked pretty freaking mean and pretty nasty in that exchange with the guy who, to my knowledge, the guy who was defending the other YouTuber. I don't think he had a YouTube channel. I don't think he was conservative or anything. I think he was just good old fashioned moderate. Didn't really care about politics. He thought it was hypocritical for her to be filing a lawsuit against a channel or seeking legal action against a much, much smaller YouTuber who just simply was doing the whole grift to get some additional views to try to build his YouTube content, because a lot of us do, in fact, do this to try to build our YouTube content that we've been creating an audience at a later date. Now, that right there made her look like a bit of a hypocrite, and now a lot of people may be thinking that maybe Sydney is doing this too. I can do this, I can make this content, I can say that I was basically Me Too'd, or I could basically say I can pull a Me Too movement, but because I've defended men so much in the past, people won't think much of it. I hate to tell you this, Jeremy, but people have better eyes than you might would think, and people don't let things like this slip.
Dozens of them. If you know her content, you know that she has a long history of not being an SJW or not being a feminist. Just because someone's pro-choice doesn't make them a feminist or a leftist or a far lefty or something like that. I'm not saying she does or doesn't. I'm just saying, like, she has a few more middle of the road opinions, but she's also extremely conservative, far more conservative than even I am.
Okay, that right there is a load of shit right there. Okay, let me explain something to you right now. American conservatives and Australian, British conservatives are not the same thing. Now, obviously, we understand that women are going to be a little bit more pro-choice. We understand that, and obviously, Sydney is not one of these ones who believes in killing a child the minute the child comes out of the womb. Obviously, we've had a lot of feminist SJWs who believe that notion, not even realizing what the hell they're believing, because most of them are mentally ill. I've discussed that on multiple occasions, and I even had a project set to go on this weekend, but now due to this right here, that project has been knocked off. Fact of the matter is that Sydney Watson at this moment in time is beginning to look a little bit, based upon the language, is beginning to look like maybe she is an SJW. But you saying that she's far more conservative than you in a lot of areas, okay, we understand that. But at the same time, though, this still looks a little bit bullshitty, because you're trying to sell her as if to say that she's still very, very much a conservative, because you yourself are underestimating your audience and you're thinking that, well, we don't like her because she's not a conservative. Bullshit. We're starting to turn on her because of the language in the lawsuit, and you're defending her when in reality what you should be doing is taking a much, much more, unbiased approach. I work with her. She works with me on this podcast. I'll give her an opportunity to speak. I personally will not get into this. If I find out otherwise here in a week or two, then I will cut her loose. If I find out what's going on otherwise here in the near future, I will cut her loose. I'll cut bait. Maybe you shouldn't bring up Elijah Schaefer. Yes, I understand there are things in his past that look a little bit shady, but here's the thing, though. Did he really and truly do anything wrong? Have we even got to that? And you're bringing up stuff in his past to kind of go and get the perceived notion that he's wrong and she's right. Dude, this right here is not exactly a good look for you, okay? And there's a reason why it is that people are beginning to question you and beginning to question whether or not you're not pulling a Tim Pool here. Now, guys, with that right there being said, let's take a look at let's go ahead and take a look at Nick Rekieta's response to this, because Nick Rekieta had a pretty vivid take on this, all right? Stop from time to time, or if you hear his voice but not see his face move, a lot of that's got to do with YouTube itself. Just want to go ahead and give you guys a fair warning. Nick is saying at the very beginning that he does not really care either way. He's not being biased on this one. And we're going to watch about 7 or 8 minutes of this. We're going to respond to it, but we're also going to leave the rest of the live stream in the description box of this video here. With that there being said, let's go ahead and roll into it. If there's a sudden jump cut in the editing, that is because there was an ad, so just bear with me.
Be happy about this.
Here's this crap I was talking about.
Not that I don't really care about her side. I don't really care about her side or anything like that. But I don't even know exactly how I'm going to come down. But I know some people are going into the lawsuit like, I'm going to go after this person, or I'm going to support this person. I don't give a fuck who is right or wrong in this suit. I have merely skimmed it, okay? So I'm not going to be like, I'm going after The Blaze or I'm going after Sydney Watson. I don't care what side anything is. We're going to look at the legal issues here. And let me preface this with this. I think this lawsuit is fucking retarded. Okay? I think it's stupid. I think it's dumb. I think, and this is going to be one of those places where I go ahead and say why I fucking hate lawsuits and I hate the legal, like, fighting mechanism. It's a stupid lawsuit. So maybe that puts me against Sydney from the get-go. I don't have any problem with Sydney Watson or anything. I'm mentioned in the lawsuit, and when we get to my mention, I'll clarify the everything about my side of that story.
Thequartering left the super chat in here.
We'll go ahead and do that. I think this is a bad move, personally. And since it's being brought by Sydney, I guess that defaults me to the others.
Wait a minute, guys. Why is Thequartering paying $20 to super chat? I'm just curious. What is he? I tell you what, we're gonna let it roll maybe a little bit longer than normal. I didn't anticipate this. I'm going in this kind of raw. But let's just roll it and see what happens.
But I don't think it's a bad move because of misogyny, patriarchy, or whatever. I just don't think this lawsuit is ultimately that great of an idea. I think it makes Sydney Watson into a very toxic commodity for employers. I think she's poisoned her career quite a bit by doing this. And maybe, again, that's neither here nor there. It doesn't even go to the merits of this lawsuit. It's just conservative ink, right? It's something that Steven Crowder was talking about with Daily Wire, and Blaze Media is very much conservative ink. And when we get into the nuts and bolts of this thing, conservative ink is going to have a crisis of conscience where they have to decide what it means to be a conservative media platform. Does it mean being a place of free speech? Does it mean being a place where expectations are set, or what does it mean to be in the conservative media space?
Let me say this really quick, okay, about Con Inc. I did about 3 or 4 videos on the whole Crowder thing, and I felt that the whole conservative Inc. thing was being exposed as controlled opposition. And the reason why I felt that was because I felt the Daily Wire, for example. Like most of you guys who watch that content, and you guys feel free to go back and watch it, critique it if you want to, say what you want, go right ahead and do so. I felt that Steven Crowder was simply exposing things that, quite frankly, we already knew. Most people who kind of sort of figured that. Now, Mark Dice, on the other hand, he said that he felt that Steven Crowder was very, very much part of Conservative Inc. as well. Now, I don't mean to go much on Crowder, but this right here does deal with Conservative Inc. A lot of people have been wondering why it is certain personalities have been coming into conservative space for a while. Sydney Watson is one of those. I recall one of the comments before I even hopped on, before I started recording, said, 25-year-old Aussie atheist, what could go wrong? One of the problems that conservatives are having, and I don't know if Nick has picked up on it, and I haven't watched enough of Nick, I really just now got tuned into Nick here recently, was that, let me take that drag off that cigarette. One of the things that we've noticed is that the conservative movement has kind of shifted more towards the center. It's almost like we're not adopting American conservative ideals anymore. It feels more like we're adopting more European conservative ideals, which, by the way, still permits the amounts of abortion that you see. It still permits a lot of the liberal leanings. And Americans, we typically tend to say, hey, look, if we've got nothing to conserve, then what's the point in friggin' voting for it? Now, many people are going to blame the previous president. They're going to blame the previous candidates. My response to that is, why don't you go back to the previous Republican president before Trump and even the one before that, because George Herbert Walker Bush was not really and truly conservative. He came more from the liberal wing of the Republican Party. And George W. Bush tried to do the compassionate conservatism thing, which, by the way, didn't really do anything for the conservative movement or conservatives, period. One of the biggest reasons why Obama won in 2008, and I know I'm going to a bit of a tangent here, is because a lot of conservatives did not show up and vote because we had John McCain on the ballot, not a conservative. And Mitt Romney, his team went out of their way to bash Tea Party conservatives who weren't even really that right wing. They were really closer to the Ron Paul types. They were more along the lines of, look, just leave me alone. It's just one of the reasons why Trump picked them up in 2016. And a lot of them stayed with him in 2020. That's why we keep on calling it the Tea Party's revenge. And I understand it's a bit of a tangent going on here. But allowing personalities like, say, Sydney, who, by the way, like I said, I don't dislike Sydney. I actually like Sydney. Of course, this entire thing right here may make me change my mind about her because, of course, you're finding out that she could very, very well be toxic. I've also mentioned in the last clip about Lauren Southern. I like Lauren too, but I've also noticed with Lauren, especially this thing when she got into a Matt Walsh, who I've got issues with as well, with the whole thing about, well, I think that people don't get the whole workplace thing where I think that maybe workers nowadays, they should have more rights than they are. It sounds almost like you're injecting much, much more liberal stuff into conservatism, and it's something that, quite frankly, the gatekeepers may have screwed up on. Hypocrite did a very good video on Carlin Borisenko about this, where he, at the very end of the video, he mentioned the fact that the conservative gatekeepers, most of them, of course, were the Blaze and, of course, Dennis Prager, they screwed up allowing that girl into the mix because what she was really doing was she was trying to liberalize the party, and as a result of this, conservatives are starting to wake up to this. So there could be a lot more implications here than you might think.
All right. Thequartering says, hey, what's up, buddy? He says, Nick Rekieta, sure Shem. There you go. That's true. That's true, sure Shem.
Sorry about that, guys.
And Master Lions gifted 5 Rekieta Law memberships. Thank you for that, Master Lions. Okay. So let's just get this pulled up and we'll go here. Yes, and I saw everyone say simp disclaimer. No.
Now, gang, let me say this last thing before we move on to the next one, okay? Like I said, I'm going to leave Rekieta Law. I'm going to leave this live stream in the description box. If you guys can't find it, just tell me in the comments, and I'll leave it there. As I was saying before, now you've got Thequartering in the chat, and, of course, Thequartering released his video last night saying some illegalese, so you kind of sort of already know what was kind of sort of said in this particular live stream that may have made Jeremy suddenly go after legal minds, of course, which we caught in that video. Now, guys, the next video we're going to look at Radix Verum. She did a video on this, and she made a lot of points, and I mentioned this at the very beginning of the video. It's not just some collage of other videos. It's just saying, I'm just pointing out some of the things that they have pointed out, which would lead people to believe that Sydney Watson may be pulling an SJW move here, and Jeremy Thequartering, of course, is in fact covering for her. But the thing about this issue is this here. Nick Rekieta, when he looks into this lawsuit, he's an actual attorney, and he's been saying that this entire lawsuit was completely stupid, and Jeremy looks bad as a result of this. Now, with that there being said, let's go ahead and move on to the next take. Gang, this right here is roughly where I left off at when I was talking about Jeremy earlier. This girl right here, Radix Verum, she had a very interesting take on this. I would have ran this back a little bit earlier, but the more and more I look at it for the purposes of time, I think the meat of it is between 15:28 and roughly 25 minutes. We're going to try to look at some of this. But she makes a lot of very interesting points here about this lawsuit and why it is that it looks like it's mostly hearsay. Now, guys, as I said before in the Nick Rekieta video, I will be leaving that video in the description box for you guys because Jeremy did, in fact, go in that live stream as you saw. My guess is that he went through multiple live streams of legal channels, probably Legal Mindset and several others who were talking about this issue. And he's probably, even on his personal account, even actually said anything in those. And, of course, he obviously does not agree with their assessment because in this particular lawsuit, one of the main things that people are bringing up is the fact there's a lot of SJW language. And to go on top of that, there's a lot of instances where evidence is not exactly presented. It seems a lot more like hearsay.
You know, the fact of the matter is I do know more than what a lot of people do.
Okay, so he has this special top secret insider information that he knows about. And if only you knew, you wouldn't ask questions. It really does remind me of Shane Cashman saying he went out to Eliza's farm. He has information. She told him names. He won't give them out, but he claimed that he had this special knowledge from Eliza, that he could vouch for her, and we just had to trust him.
Really quick. Jeremy, let me ask you a serious question, boss. why are you even bringing this up? Why are you even saying that you know more than others do? Best thing you can do if you want to try to stay objective is just not say anything. Just say it's a court case that's going on. I know the parties involved. Leave it at that. Say it's an issue between them. I'm not going to get involved in it. I ask you to respect it. I mean, you can at least ask your audience that there. That's kind of what I was saying Tim Pool should have done. People may have gotten upset with him, but eventually he would have been able to recover. Of course, we're finding out now in the case of the Shane Cashman article he had to have scrubbed that Tim Pool, for the most part, yeah, he keeps on saying the buck don't stop with him, but the buck does stop with him and his credibility is shot. You're kind of in the same spot that he was. And as I said, guys, this take right here is going to sound a little bit different from the previous one, maybe in certain cases, because as I went through, and I told you at the very beginning of the video, as I dug deeper and deeper and deeper into this, the more and more I look at this entire situation, I say, wow, this right here does look pretty bad.
I know a lot about it.
I know a little, but now I know a lot.
I work with Sydney Watson, and Sydney.
So what do you, it's just like, oh, I know a lot about it. Well, is it just her side of the story? Because that's not really you knowing a lot about it. It's just you making inferences based on hearing one side of the story.
Watson is my friend.
Yes, we know.
I know Elijah Schaefer. I've hung out with Elijah Schaefer. I don't have anything personally against the man. If people are looking for, me to disavow him, certainly he's had some bad behavior. He was terminated from the Blaze for putting his hands on a woman who did.
That right there is basically disavowing. You can't sit here and say if people are looking for me to disavow him and basically infer that I'm not going to, then turn right back around and basically throw him under the bus. Let me also say this right here too. Elijah Schaefer, and I said this at the very beginning of the video, not a fan of his. Never have been a fan of his. I've always thought it was more milquetoast than anything else. He was milquetoast with his spin, a comical spin on him. Now, let me go ahead and throw this right here out here as well. All these cases where girls have claimed that he has said this and he has done this and he's done that on set, a lot of these right ended up being hearsay. Once again, no actual evidence, no actual honest-to-God statements here saying, okay, well, this right here is actually what he did, or this right here is how far he went. And let me say something else to you, too. To all the people out there who want to use the whole Me Too thing, let me ask you a serious question. Why do you go to work? You go to work to make money, correct? Some cases where you go to work, you obviously are going to deal with somebody that you don't like. This right here could be another one of those cases where it could just be a good old-fashioned jerk. And I understand, ladies, you're going to work with a guy that you don't like the same exact way men are going to work with people of the opposite sex that they don't like. You're even going to work with people that, quite frankly, are of the same sex as you are that you're not going to like. By God, I've ran into many of them.
Okay, so here's where he gets into saying he's not going to smear him and then proceeds to do that. But anyways, neither here nor there. And I will say, by the way, that did he do that to Sydney Watson, though, is the question.
And so apparently it's extraordinarily difficult for people to understand. And maybe he wasn't very, very nice guy, but.
Just because he's not a nice guy doesn't mean he's guilty of what the allegations say in the lawsuit. And some of them are incredibly silly. And he should know that.
And as you noticed in the very first video that I released on this, if you watched it, I played those clips for you to just go ahead and let you know that Schaefer tries to come off as a playful guy. He may be a little bit awkward, a little bit cringe, but sometimes that's how some people act around others. This is their way of trying to make people feel comfortable around them, and maybe it doesn't work. And I never got the impression that Sydney at one point in time was ever uncomfortable around Elijah. I mean, as I've said before, this lawsuit started with Elijah Schaefer, but now I'm suing the Blaze. I still, for the life of me, am having a hard time wondering why it is that the Blaze, I mean, look, you could have just filed a complaint. Now, maybe that's possible. Maybe she filed a complaint against Elijah Schaefer and tried to get removed, but I do find it weird that she is saying that she's basically going after them, but yet the Blaze removed both of them and replaced her show and her subscribers with Alex Stein. So it seems to me like some action was done. If anything, it may have been punitive because they straight up replaced you and Elijah Schaefer both, probably because they think Elijah's cringe and they probably want to get rid of you too because you're 29 years old, not 25, and you may be hitting the wall. But I mean, it is a common trope of conservative news organizations. Fox News does this right here too. It's kind of the Roger Ailes thing where we put the girl who's got the prettier legs on television first. And the reason why we do that is because it hooks in more viewers. I'll probably bring that up a little bit more because, as I mentioned in the very early section of this video, a lot of this was going to be about Connick and a lot of it was going to be about gatekeeping.
I didn't have any bad interactions with him. And I figured I'll address it. And, you know, to the people in my audience that are saying, Jeremy, we don't need you to address it, we totally understand. I appreciate that. And I'll use this opportunity to ask you to tune into Sydney and my show.
To show the show.
Community Notes.
Gotta sell
we
it.
normally do it Thursday night, but tonight I'm going to, we're going to go live tonight because we have some travel stuff. So I hope I'll see you there. I'll leave a link in the description. So if nothing else, hopefully the people that are really angry about this, it backfires and we get a bunch of new viewers on Community Notes.
Sure. Is it like people don't, like, who's angry about it? I think people are just confused and they think that you're being somehow dishonest and not having consistency and integrity because it's your friend.
Well, confusion always ends up leading to anger. Let me just put it that way there. I'm angry he wasn't exactly for it. I mean, as I've said before, this where it kind of sort of goes to conservative gatekeeping. This also kind of sort of in a lot of ways goes to how your audience views you, especially considering how we all just went after Tim Pool and now we all look like, well, at least you do anyways, look like a bit of a hypocrite. You're kind of having that Tim Pool moment here where you're not exactly being honest with your audience.
It's fine.
We've been doing this show for, I think, almost a year now. And I think it's really growing well. And I think you'll like it. And we also have, you know, my editor. And it is over some bad behavior that happened there. What people are focusing on, because that's all they have to focus on, are the black and white text that's in.
Yeah, that's called the actual writing in the lawsuit, dude. Look, I'm not a lawyer, but having worked inside of a law office, I've seen the deposition forms before. Obviously, there's going to be some black and white text here. I don't know if he's trying to dumb it down for his audience or what, but whatever.
The black and white text, like, yeah, the only thing in the lawsuit, the text of the lawsuit.
Thank you.
The lawsuit. And from what I understand, what I'm gathering is some law tuber said that they don't like the lawsuit. Or that
Some law tuber said.
A law tuber who, by the way, you super chatted the night before. Guys, really quick, look at this date. Look at this. This right was her 11 hours ago. Okay, she posted this 11 hours ago. Jeremy, on the other hand, posted this video here sometime shortly after Nick Ricada posted his video, roughly. And don't worry, we'll go to the quartering and we'll see exactly when he posted this video, because I'm pretty sure he posted this video after Nick Ricada posted his video. And like I said before, and you guys saw it, Jeremy was in the super chat. All right, so obviously whatever Nick Ricada had to say, which by the way, that video will be in the description box of this video here or the comment section, and I advise you guys to look at it before you go any further. He's obviously responding to something that Nick Ricada or another attorney, possibly legal mindset, like she's about to mention here in a second, or maybe other YouTube attorneys, that he may be going in looking at through his personal account, not the quartering, instead of super chatting. There's some things that he probably does not like that's coming out that they're saying, and obviously, once again, it looks like he may be simping for Sydney.
No, we know who you're talking about. You're talking about legal mindset. And you're talking about Rekieta. I think he's talking about both of them, by the way. Some law tuber, like as if he's above, like, knowing who these people are. He knows who they are. So that's annoying. And then from what I can gather, the lawsuit says, so he hasn't even actually read it. That's what you're hearing. Like, he hasn't looked at it.
It's all hearsay.
So
it's all
like,
hearsay.
Well, then why are you talking about it at all?
they don't think it's a good lawsuit. Hey, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. You know, I'm seeing that. You know, I don't know about that stuff. Obviously, also, there's some language in the lawsuit that, you know, I understand people who are skeptical when it's like, oh, woman complains about being mistreated at work. Oh, sure, again, you know, that kind of thing. And I admit that there certainly are many spurious lawsuits like this.
Yes, that's right. That makes silly claims about, oh my gosh, I was so offended that I had to read a super chat. I'm literally traumatized.
And
that should be bounced out of court.
Like,
and that is the reason why I include the Jack Murphy clip in that original video that I did. You see, a lot of people still feel bad for Sydney over that. And I understand why. You had a guy who claims to be this masculine dude, who, by the way, is a habitual grifter, who basically has this voice that's very feminine sounding, and at the same time cuckolds and he lets his wife do other dudes in front of him, and then he chews her out, obviously you're probably going to feel bad for the girl. All right, so obviously like I said, you're going to feel bad for her that she had to put up with that. It's not exactly something that somebody would be very, very cold to. However, if she's upset about the fact that she had to read a super chat, which, judging by the language of the actual suit, it looks to me like it's mostly hearsay here. I mean, it sounds to me like a lot of hearsay and not a lot of actual, honest to God, evidence or proof that's being thrown around here about Elijah's behavior, or the Blaze even allowing Elijah's behavior to go through. And it's possible that maybe they did, but then again, at the same time, this could be one of those situations where they got a complaint or a series of complaints, and the Blaze said, you know what, screw this right here. She's getting too old. We're getting to the point to where it's just not working out with her. We probably should have never hired her. She doesn't match our religious beliefs, which, by the way, is what she's trying to sue them for, saying, look, they tried to change my religious beliefs, when in reality, they probably did not try to change it. They just said we have a certain audience to go to. Just try to leave that out, which is not really anything illegal about that. But she's alleging that they're trying to get her to change, that they tried to get her to change her actual belief system, which I personally don't think they did. And then you throw in the fact that Elijah Schaefer's got some complaints. Apparently he's showing up drunk on the set, and they're claiming that the Blaze media allowed this to happen, is what she's trying to say. But yet the actual text of the lawsuit does not include any actual honest-to-God evidence, mostly just hearsay. For all we know, Elijah Schaefer was not showing up drunk, and maybe he's just a goofy-ass guy. And maybe the Blaze said, you know, it's slightly offensive. It's just not working out. Look, I want to go ahead and get rid of both of these. We're going to replace them with something that does work, like Alex Stein. I mean, if that right there is the case, then basically, Sydney, you just got to be fired for not performing.
He'll go on to say in this video that she is so traumatized, he protects her from even having to look at the chat. Like, what?
I do not believe that Sydney's case is one of those. What people are seeming to forget in their rush to criticize her, call her a feminist and things like that, SJW, is this woman has a body of work that has...
So does Lauren Southern. She has a body of work too, dude. Okay, I mentioned earlier when I was talking about this with your section of this video, which by the way is going to end up being about an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes. I brought up the fact that she did a debate, a live stream with a guy where she complained about another YouTuber making content about her. Now look, if you're going to be in this business, you have to have thick skin, okay? Yes, I understand. It's not exactly a cool thing to block people on Twitter or whatnot, but still at the same time, though, you have to have thick skin. You have to be able to filter out what gets on your nerves and what does not. In that case, she had a debate with a guy who brought up the fact that she was suing somebody, threatening legal action against another YouTuber, a small YouTuber with only like 3,000 subscribers. This guy had not even gotten his career done. He wasn't even making any real money, and she wanted him to be removed because of some mean videos. He called her out on her bullshit, and then she got mad, and the whole thing devolved into chaos, and then eventually she deleted the live stream. I've been trying to find that live stream, even through the Wayback Machine, and still cannot find it. Okay? Just because somebody's got a body of work of being an anti-SJW does not mean that they're not secretly a social justice warrior. And by the way, one more thing too, if I didn't mention it already, the Australian, the European right, the Canadian right, they're not the same as the American right.
Dozens of videos defending men.
So, what does that matter? Like, that can be true, and it can also be true that she still is a liberal feminist. That is the paradigm within which she operates from. And that is, I think, kind of obvious for anyone who's watched the way she talks about certain things. So it's just like, you can be a feminist that still has defended men and men's rights. That it's not, they don't negate one another.
Dozens of them. If you know her content, you know that she has a long history of not being an SJW.
Well, hello, what about all these conning people who behind closed doors have a completely different ideology?
Completely caught Ben Shapiro. Completely caught him on camera. Mark Dice did a video on that. I got to show it all the time. How it was that Ben Shapiro is not as base as he claims he is. How he's flip-flopped on positions, or how he's told you to go get the fuck. I got to say it a certain way, or else YouTube will listen in and YouTube will dox this video. Okay, we've caught these people going against the principles that they preach on several occasions, okay? You can't fully come out here and say that she's an anti-SJW without actually knowing it. Now, you're going off a personal matter. You say, well, I do live streams with her, this, that, and the other. Okay, Jeremy, do you live with her? I mean, do you know? I mean, do you know everything she says? I mean, are you married to her? Or are you secretly married to her and we don't know it?
What they present to the public. People that are part of the Con Inc. machine, their cultivated personality.
Really quick, I want to go ahead and get this out of the way, especially to all my new subscribers. I want you to go ahead and know right now that I am a 37-year-old single white male prior service Marine. I have always been a conservative. Well, not always been a conservative, but I became much more conservative after I got out of the Marines. Okay, I, for the most part, have worked a lot of crappy jobs. So if you look into my past and you see a lot of things that quite frankly say, well, this right here doesn't match up with ways. So just go ahead and know right now I'm not lying to you about who the hell I am. You can investigate my past all the hell you want, even my military record. You'll see that my military record isn't even that great either. And if you talk to guys that serve with, they'll probably say Lofton was a bit of a dumbass. Yes, I just revealed my last freaking name. My name, John Claymore, is a pseudonym. I just want to go get that out of the way now so that way you guys can know for a fact that I do, in fact, practice what I preach. By the way, I'm not working right now, but I'll probably start back working in the month of March or April. If not, I'll be right here on YouTube as a full-timer. Shit.
They get talking points sometimes. They get promoted. They get sponsors. They tell people what they want to hear at times. So just because if you're familiar with her content, that's not her as a person. That's only what people want you to see on the camera. It's what they choose to show you and choose to.
Also, something else, too. I want to go ahead and throw this out here, too. I'm also a bit of a jerk in real life. I can be real nice, but sometimes you can catch me in a jerk position. And don't worry, someday the sponsorship gods will come for me, and I will have to try to sell you something. Of course, I want to go let you know right now, I'm not exactly going to be enthusiastic about it because I don't like to have to do re-edits. I just want to go ahead and throw that out there. I know I'm going a bit of a tangent here, but I just want to go ahead and throw it out here.
You don't know if she actually believes any of these things behind the scenes. I'm just saying, like, that can be very misleading, okay?
For not being a feminist. Just because someone's pro-choice doesn't make them a feminist or a leftist or a far left.
A lot of people turned on Tommy Lahren over that same exact position, boss.
That goes the other way, too. Just because someone has defended men on one occasion doesn't mean that they're incapable of harming.
Let me give you another example. Do you think maybe Jink Younger accuses Jimmy Dore's crazy ass of being right-wing because Jink Younger is probably secretly on the right, meaning he's very, very pro-media, very, very pro-corporate? Did you ever think about that? Oftentimes, people accuse one another of not practicing what they preach, okay? Now, I'm not saying that Sydney is an SJW or anything secretly, but the more and more you look at this lawsuit, the more and more you begin to think it's maybe possible that she's adopting this language and it's making her look very bad in the process. And Jeremy, if you are fully defending her and throwing down your sword or throwing your body on the sword for her, it doesn't make you look good either, bro.
In another, or being petty, or being vindictive, or holding a grudge, or whatever. I'm just giving hypotheticals. I'm not saying that's what's happening in this situation. I'm just saying try to be more objective and look at this from the perspective of an audience member that doesn't have this relationship with Sydney that you have.
Like that. I'm not saying she does or doesn't. I'm just saying, like, she has a few more middle of the road opinions, but she's also extremely conservative, far more conservative.
Milquetoast, like a few of you guys that are notorious fence sitters,
Tim Pool, definitely. Mike Cernovich.
Controversial to keep everything monetized. You know how many videos of mine are like demonetized off the bat? Almost all of them. I make almost no money in ad revenue on this platform. I do not restrict myself, though, to being milquetoast centrist, whatever.
Better than even I am. I think, whatever happened, between her and her coworkers, that's going to get handled in court. Mm-hmm. I understand people feeling the way that they do about women in particular suing their employers for a toxic work environment.
Yeah, if you've worked in a law firm that handles employment litigation, you can see firsthand behind the scenes how much of this stuff is literally manufactured out of thin air. Oh, somebody accidentally brushed up against you next to the copier. Now you've got intentional infliction of emotional distress, pain and suffering. I have panic attacks. every time I go to the grocery store and have to be around people in person. Like, this is how the legal system works. It's designed that way, to be adversarial like that. And they will lie. They'll make stuff up 100% out of whole cloth to tell somebody, hey, this gives you a better chance of getting money from the lawsuit, right? A settlement.
And really quick, before we shut down this section of the video, I want to go ahead and throw this out here. Sometimes it isn't even for money. Sometimes it's just for attention. I don't recall the Daily Beast or any news organization or anybody touching this story until it came up, till she brought it up. Now, I'm going to go ahead and halt this video here, but before I do want to look at one more thing. Now, guys, do you remember how I said that Jeremy was more than likely, how do I say this? He was more than likely peering into certain YouTube channels. Well, let's take a look at Thequartering, this video real quick, and see exactly when this channel, when this video was released. Let's take a look at it really quick. Okay, 19 hours ago. That was 11 hours ago. Let's take a look at Rekieta. By the way, this is the video, of course, that I showed you guys earlier, the one that will be in the description box. This right here was streamed 2 days ago. Okay, now you also have a legal mindset. I will leave that video in there as well. But as you can see, 1 day later. So Radix here is not exactly, how do I say, inaccurate. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, he has been going inside other people's stuff. Not to mention Sydney Watson, of course, addressing the incident. Well, no, that's my bad. Wrong one. That was about the Jack Murphy. I'm sorry about that, guys. But as you guys can see, and you guys already saw that with Rekieta, it's pretty obvious that, guess what? Jeremy has been going in. He's been seeing what other legal minds, other people have been saying on this. Let me see if Robert Barnes has done one on this one. Let's see if Robert Barnes has done one on this. I'm not going to play it, but I want to see if Robert Barnes has done one. Okay, that was 5 months ago, so it doesn't look to me like Barnes has actually done anything on this. Let me go back to his actual page and see if Robert has mentioned anything about this. So far, I'm not really seeing anything. All right, gang, we're going to hold up this section of the video. I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Just make sure you guys stick around for that. Like I said, these 3 videos will be in the description box, or more than likely will be in the comments section. With that there being said, let's go and roll it. My ordeal is this here. As I said before, Jeremy, in a lot of ways, may have just had his own little Tim Pool moment. That moment being where he looks like a bit of a hypocrite, and he does not want to answer the actual questions that people are asking him about Sydney. We all know that they have a podcast together. And as I mentioned before in the previous video and this right here, I'm not a super fan of either one of these people. I do think Jeremy is okay, even though he's a lot, for the most part, cringe. But this situation, he obviously looks a little bit on that, let's just say he looks a little bit hypocritical and doesn't look too different from Tim in this situation. Sydney, if she's using SJW talking points to try to get a law, let's just say if she's using this to sue the Blaze. And as I mentioned before in the first video, the reason why she's going after the Blaze rather than Elijah Schaffer is because Elijah Schaffer doesn't really have any money. If anything, I think people are trying to stay away from him. And quite frankly, we've all felt bad about Sydney, especially since the whole Jack Murphy thing. Fact of the matter is this where it goes back to the whole conservative gatekeeping thing, and the Blaze is definitely a part of the Con Egg thing. I don't think they're as bad as what's been exposed about the Daily Wire. But at the same time, though, I'm pretty sure you guys are kind of getting where I'm going at. Some people are starting to think that maybe it may have just been a great big giant grift. I mentioned on 3 separate occasions in that video talking about the whole Lauren Southern thing where she had a live stream that now all of a sudden you can't find, where somebody had in fact called her out on some nonsense because she was trying to use the legal system to go after a guy who was making very, very bad videos. Now, me personally, I don't have a problem with the girl. Never have. I'm talking about Lauren. I don't have a problem with Sydney here either. But at the same time, though, I was kind of bringing up the fact that this type of stuff has happened. So that way, you know, people do have a past of not only having anti-SJW talking points, but having talking points that, quite frankly, don't fit exactly what they put on. Don't exactly fit the actual facade. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to question me. And, of course, I went ahead and when it came out during that last one and say, hey, look, this is who the hell I am. If you don't believe me, you can go ahead and look into my background if you friggin' want. I really and truly don't care. You're not really going to find anything. But still, at the same time, though, I digress. The thing is this right here. This comes down to gatekeeping. Is she using SJW language to go after somebody? Or is it possible that maybe everything that's inside that docket, everything inside that court case, may just be a good old-fashioned bunch of BS and mostly hearsay? Fact of the matter is that when you go to court, you better have proof or you better have strong enough evidence to be able to get somebody. Now, I'm not a lawyer, not a legal expert. I am a guy with common sense. I am a guy who's seen some things, and some people will obviously say that I don't really have any. That's fine with me. You guys can say whatever the hell you want to in the comment section, but the fact of the matter is that on the surface, and even kind of scratching the surface a little bit, it looks like two things are going on here. It looks like Jeremy is in fact simping. It also, at the same time, looks like Sydney may in fact be using these talking points to kind of get ahead. And yeah, this entire situation just doesn't look good. Guys, I had promised in the first video I was going to try to wait a week. I'm probably not going to come back to this story for like another week or so. I'll be having a video out tomorrow on the new content that's coming out and all the censorship that's going on and what I may be doing on my second channel, Short Timer Prepping. I'll be having that out on Friday. There's also another video, which by the way will be more sports related, that will be coming out tonight. It's going to be coming out a little bit later on tonight. I'm definitely going to be releasing a lot more content at night. So make sure you guys stick around for that because we got to go after the social justice warriors and the very, very bad narratives again. With that right there being said, guys, make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe, share the video, sign up in the comment section, and I'll see you guys later.